Live from Bearcast Studios at the University of Cincinnati, this is Cats at the Corners.
Happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in. This is Cats at the Corners. Real quick before we get started, I'd like to give a big shout out to the Buckeye, Travis Brake, for recording that intro. I was hounding him all night trying to get him to record, and he finally gave in. So next Canes runs is on me if you're listening. Big news, baseball is almost back, going on today. We're going 1 week until the Cats go to Georgia State, Atlanta, to take on the Panthers. But first, before we get into baseball, let's get into a sports overview. So today on campus, we've got lacrosse taking on Kent State at 3 p.m. at Nippert. If you want to tune in, that's their home opener, and that's their season opener. Actually, that's their season opener and home opener. So in-state rivalry should be a good game. And then big one tonight. Senior weekend starts tonight for UC hockey. UC hockey hosts the West Virginia Mountaineers tonight at 9, and then the second game of the series is tomorrow at 1 p.m. at Sports Plus. I'd more than recommend going out. If you see the cameraman, make sure to wave hi. I'll be there, and it's a great atmosphere. It's a great environment to go to the baseball games, and it's also a great environment. You get that kind of same environment when you go to the hockey games for UC. It's at Sports Plus, so it's a little bit of a drive, but it's well worth making the trip out there to get your weekend started. And then tonight, Major League Hockey, the last in the league, Columbus Blue Jackets host the Toronto Maple Leafs at 7 p.m. Blue Jackets going into this game are 15-32-4. The Leafs are 31-13-8. We got a little bit of a race going on tonight. Blue Jackets are racing for the first overall pick, which will most likely be Connor Bedard. And the Leafs, as always, are racing to be the first team out of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Betfred has the Leafs at money line at minus 255. And then moving over to the men's basketball, the 16-9 Cincinnati Bearcats host the 10-14 South Florida Bulls after a tough 101-94 loss at Tulane. That game starts at 7 p.m. Saturday at Fifth Third Arena. Bearcats looking for a big bounce back going on after the loss at Tulane. That was kind of a shocker. If you were listening to Let's Play 2, I was listening to Let's Play 2, and they kind of had some good coverage of that. And David DeJulius got into a little altercation, but we should be all good going into Saturday. And then on the women's side, the basketball team is on the road at Temple Saturday at 2 p.m. Women's team's having a little bit of a struggle year this year, but they're looking to make a big statement against Temple on the road. And then last night, the NFL honors, big one. Sauce Gardner, University of Cincinnati alumni, won Defensive Rookie of the Year. And for Bengals fans, the Rattler, Ken Riley, made it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's a big one that Bengals fans have been asking for a long time. Big shout out to Bengal Jim for starting the I wouldn't really say it's a protest, but the meetings outside the Pro Football Hall of Fame, letting them know that, Bengals players deserve to be in there just as much as other people, because there's that kind of stigma around if your market determines if you get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and hopefully you hope that's not true, but Ken Riley was such a great player, and he's been left out of there for so long. It's honestly a shame that he's not around to see it, but it's great that he is finally getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame alongside his good buddy Anthony Munoz. Joe Burrow won FedEx Air Player of the Year, which was well deserved, and an interesting one for me was the Bengals won the Celebration of the Year, which was, if you missed it, it was against the Ravens. It was the roller coaster celebration by the defense. That was a pretty fun game to be at. I was personally at that game, and it's fun when stuff like that happens. And then it's kind of it's an award that doesn't really mean anything, but it's still fun to be recognized for anything. And then the big one is on Sunday, the Super Bowl. Birds hosting the Chiefs at State Farm Stadium, in Phoenix. Personally, I have to go with the Eagles for this one. Not sure many people want a baseball host's opinion on a football game, but I would go with the Eagles. I was at the Chiefs game. Chiefs have a great atmosphere. It really does get loud in there. I went to the Buffalo game and I went to the Chiefs game. Arrowhead was louder by a decent margin, and it's unfortunate being a Cincinnati fan that the Bengals weren't able to pull that one out, but they've got a great team and they'll be back for a long time to come. And so I want to give a little bit of a schedule update because this is going to be kind of an unusual show. So our Friday shows are mainly going to be focused on giving a preview of the weekend series to come. And of course, there's no baseball this weekend, so we're just going to kind of cover some topics. Tuesday's shows are going to be more of a review of the previous weekend series, and then also kind of talking about any midweek matchups that may be going on. Next Tuesday's show will be kind of a overall season overview, kind of what we can expect from the Bearcats this year. And then next Friday we'll kind of get into our normal schedule of a preview before the Georgia State game down in Atlanta. So I was listening to another great show we have on Bearcast Radio. It's called Let's Play 2. We've got one of the co-hosts, Preston Baker, producing this show today. Big thank you to our producer for being here. And they brought up a really good point, and it's something I kind of wanted to talk about on the show today, is just kind of some of the jerseys going around in the American. So we've got a lot of just overall brands in the American Conference that, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the brand in general. Like South Florida, for example, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of the colors. I'm not a big fan of anything. When they bring out the dark green with the neon green, I thought we kind of retired that with Michigan State. But one of the things they mentioned last night was that Tulane has the best jerseys in the American, and I 100% have to agree. They have the best combos. That their powder blues and then the dark green, that color combination is perfect. It looks great in pretty much every sport that they have, but especially in baseball, they get pretty creative with those combinations. And here's kind of a hot take. We're going in, and I'm going to drop a little bit of a controversial opinion here. Out of all the jerseys at the University of Cincinnati, I think the best jersey that we have as a school is the throwback baseball jersey. And you could say that I'm being biased because this is a baseball program. I have to talk about baseball. But I really do think that is the best looking jersey on the field, just kind of like the cream with the old throwback Bearcat logo. It looks great, and people get really excited for it. And now some people may say, what about the Bearcat basketball throwback jerseys that they're wearing on Saturday, actually? Those are great too, but I just give the baseball jersey a little bit of an edge. And here's my other thing about the Cincinnati jerseys. Something that I was a fan of at first, but kind of have moved away from, was when all the jerseys became the same. Like if you look across all the sports, every jersey looks pretty much the same. Like the football jersey, black football is the same as the black basketball, same as the black baseball, same as the black lacrosse. And so I like that because it just made it feel like it was all one big team, one big community here at Cincinnati. But I do like it when teams get creative and have kind of their own identity apart from the standard jerseys at the University of Cincinnati. And of course, the baseball team also gets a gray jersey thrown in there for the away games. And something I wanted to talk about kind of while we're on the subject of just kind of sports in general in Cincinnati is the culture that we've built around baseball in Cincinnati and how that's kind of changed over the years. So I grew up in a little bit outside of Columbus, Ohio, and so from kind of an outsider's perspective looking into Cincinnati, to me it was kind of always about two things, and I could be totally off, but this was just kind of the vibe that I got, was that it was all about college basketball because you've got Xavier and Cincinnati, who were always great teams going head-to-head. And then it was about Reds baseball. Reds baseball was huge. And obviously, the Bengals have had their seasons, like 2005, 2015 come to mind when you think of successful Bengals teams. But the culture around baseball in Cincinnati has kind of changed over the past couple of years, given the success of the Cincinnati Bengals and growing frustrations with the Castellinis for Cincinnati Reds fans. It's just been interesting to see kind of how the city has shifted from basketball and baseball to just kind of solely on football, because the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cincinnati Bearcats both got really good at around the same time. The Bearcats were a little better while the Bengals were still going through that rebuild. The city was able to rally behind a winning team, and two winning teams that were, both teams made the playoffs. Everyone was super, super excited about Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant and Desmond Ritter and all the stars that we had at the college level. And then how great was it that the next day you got to watch Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. And so that's where I think baseball kind of got in trouble, because it felt like for a while the Reds were kind of relying on the reputation of being one of the most historic franchises in baseball, which I'm not going to say, obviously no one just goes out and plans to, lose 100 games every season, and that causes teams not to try. But there is a definite gap in baseball, because we see it with payrolls all the time with the Reds and in Oakland and Cleveland, and then you've got teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Mets, who, money's not an option for those teams. So, baseball's already has kind of a weird culture built around it where, it's just kind of the good teams that can afford it are able to be sustained for a long time. So that's kind of that I always thought that was interesting. I just always thought it was interesting how baseball just the top teams are able to always keep and some of that's even seen in hockey for a little bit. We've seen the Penguins with Sidney Crosby. They're it seems like they're competing every year, where in Columbus for the Blue Jackets, they're having one of the worst years probably in franchise history. They're last in the league right now, and fighting for that top draft pick. But back on the topic of kind of the culture of Cincinnati sports, I kind of want to get into the difference between Bearcats baseball and Cincinnati Reds baseball, and obviously these are isolated examples. This isn't similar, but one of my favorite memories just of baseball in general was last year's University of Cincinnati home opener, where they hosted the Ohio State Buckeyes, and Cam Scheller hit a walk-off dinger. And, everyone in the stadium was going crazy. That game was an attendance record. I believe they've set a couple more attendance records since then. But that was an attendance record. It was a packed crowd. It was a great environment. And obviously it's not as many people as a packed Reds game, but it was still, you could just tell it was electric. And I have a distinct memory from last year's Reds season of getting off from work and then kind of just remembering there was a Reds game. And I had nothing going on. I bought a ticket real quick. I went to the game, and it's not an exaggeration. I was sitting in the upper levels, and there was no one in my section. It was a very interesting atmosphere and something I haven't experienced at a sporting event, and I kind of enjoyed it just because it was almost a surreal thing that it's like I was at a professional sporting event, and really no one was there. No one was in my section except for the usher when he walked by a couple times. But other than that, it was just a very calm environment, and it was it was a very surreal kind of experience for me. And honestly I would do it again. I almost enjoyed it because it was just kind of like me alone there, watching this game in person, which is a very weird experience that I don't think many people have been able to experience, unless of course you were one of the couple other people at that game. Then you experienced it right along with me. I don't even remember who we played. I know they lost. I think it might have been the Pirates. It was just a weekday game, so not many people were showing up for that. And that kind of brings me to just kind of what I like about baseball in general. Because baseball is it's a very unique game because we hear from T-ball up, every single coach that everyone's ever had has told you, slow down. There's no clock on this thing. Well, now there is that. Now there is at the major league level, which we can get into that at a later date. But it's a very slow-paced game. Games take a lot longer than other professional sports games. But I think the reason why so many people are drawn to baseball in particular is just because of the contrast of the sport. Because it can be a very calm inning where nothing's really happening. Someone grounds out to the third base side. That's the only ball put in play for the whole inning. And then next inning, 40,000 people are on their feet screaming their heads off because someone just hit a dinger. So that's kind of that's what I think is the allure of baseball, is that it's not action all the time like the NBA or the NFL. You can have a calm experience, but at the same time you can really get into it. And I know a lot of people get into baseball for statistics. A lot of people like to study the numbers really hard, and I don't get too deep into the numbers, but that's definitely something. Baseball, it's a sport that everyone can find something in that they enjoy, and that's just kind of my opinion on it. I just think it's America's pastime. It's just such a classic symbol of our culture that it's really it's a beautiful thing. And that's kind of a corny thing to say, but it really is. When you go to a baseball game, I just think of a matinee Sunday game. That's, to me, is what baseball is for the Reds. Going, seeing them play the Cardinals, probably gonna lose, but you're still having fun regardless, going with a couple friends. That's just, to me, that's one of the best experiences you can get in sports because of how unique it is. And then I wasn't going to get too much into this upcoming season for Cincinnati, but I did want to say that the Bearcats did announce their captains recently. Captains are going to be Garrett Harker, Cam Scheller, and Cole Harding. Cole Harding specifically, he's a guy that I really enjoyed watching his game last year. He was a guy that he was a very reliable hitter. He wasn't always going to hit the big fly, but he's just a great hitter. And some of these guys, are a lot of these guys are very talented guys, and a lot of people will bring their attention straight away to Ryan Nicholson, who's a great player. He's an absolutely phenomenal player for the University of Cincinnati, and he's a power hitter. He can absolutely he'll make contact and it's gonna go. So we've got a lot of talent this year to look forward to. Just real quick, just kind of a quick overview of some of the guys, not everyone, but some of the guys that we lost last year. One of the big ones for me was Bo Keithley. I really enjoyed watching Bo pitch. I thought it was interesting how he kind of switched up his throwing motion between pitches. Sometimes he'd go over the top, sometimes he'd go sidearm. But no, he had a 4.87 ERA in 85 innings pitched, 16 appearances and 11 starts. So that's right away, that's one of your key starting rotation guys that you're going to be missing this year. So, he was a really fun player to watch. And that's how I would describe this Cincinnati Bearcats baseball team. Obviously, we don't, we're not going to get into predictions here because they haven't touched the field yet, and we're not going to speculate as to how good they're going to be or anything, but this was a very fun team to watch. They hit the ball well. They score a lot of runs. So overall, I'd say if you've got some free time, definitely head out to the ballpark and watch a Bearcats baseball game. I couldn't recommend it anymore because it's different. It's the same game of baseball as that's played at the major league levels, but it's just a little bit different. I think it's a little more high action, based on last year's team. We had, we just had it's a lot more hitting. It's a lot more runs. It's overall it's a really fun experience to go out to a University of Cincinnati baseball game. Another big bat that we lost, leadoff hitter Paul Comistek. 364 average in 21, 319 average in 22. So overall, a really solid hitter. Played 55 games, 599 slugging percentage, 28 RBIs, 8 dingers. That was a really fun guy to watch at his time at UC. That's kind of a big thing, is when you've got a guy coming from a big program that's got a really good baseball program like Tennessee, coming to Cincinnati and playing here. He was a great player, and he was. The thing that comes to mind, again, all these guys are really fun to watch. All these guys are extremely fun to watch. And then, of course, the big one that kind of was the big news of the off season was Griffin Merritt transferring to Tennessee. So that was the 2022 AAC Player of the Year, which is huge honor. Also, Paul Comistek was second team AAC. But 2022 AAC Player of the Year, 315 average, 660 slugging percent, 19 dingers, and 53 RBIs. So straight up, this dude can mash. That dude, I'll tell you what, Griffin Merritt was such a fun player to watch. And here's my take on him transferring to Tennessee. I don't think anyone should be bitter or upset about Griffin Merritt going to Tennessee. Obviously, we can miss him, and I'd love to have him back on the team this year. I don't know anyone in the country that wouldn't want him on their team. But this is a very big opportunity for him as a player, and obviously, Cincinnati Bearcats fans as a whole, I feel like, are getting kind of, especially with the whole college football playoff push, are getting kind of tired of that whole Power 5 versus trying to beat the kind of the stigma against non-Power 5 teams. But Tennessee, they've got a great baseball program there, and so it's hard not to miss a guy like that, obviously. But as a fan base, I think we can all agree that we're going to pull behind Griffin Merritt. We're all still big Griffin Merritt fans here, and he's going to be really fun to watch in the SEC this year. Speaking of the SEC, we've got a matchup coming up after Georgia State in the SEC against we're going to Gainesville, play the Florida Gators, and I'm just kind of noticing, I am not sure how if the Georgia State game will be broadcast in any way. Right now, there's nothing listed, so be sure to follow the show on Twitter, and I'll have something posted if I'm able to find that out. But no, after that, we're going to Florida, play the Gators, which that some teams based on reputation alone are fun to play. So when you play an SEC team in football or baseball, those are always, everyone's kind of got their schedules marked for those ones. And then after that, we're going to come back, play Miami of Ohio at home. That's going to be our home opener on March 1st. Make sure you can make it out. 5 p.m. start March 1st on a Wednesday versus Miami, Ohio. Then March 3rd, quick turnaround. We're going to have a series against North Alabama, pardon me. Back on the road, a little road stint, Eastern Kentucky, then Wofford. And I'm not going to go through the whole calendar, but I will tell you a game that I have had marked since last year is, since the schedules I've been looking forward to this for about a year. March 22nd at 3 p.m., the Bearcats travel to Norwood to play the Musketeers. And, if you were watching that series last year, it was a little disappointing, and they got swept by the Bearcats, and you've got the coach on the sideline kind of making a fool of himself a little bit. But that's Xavier. That's kind of just what they do over there. But no, that's a game that I'm really looking forward to. That I think it'll be a really good series, really good game. That's a single game, and then we do play Xavier again May 9th, and then we have a chance to play them in the Joe Knox All Classic before that. So, it's always fun, regardless of sport. It's always fun when you play those guys. Big rivalry games are always, that brings people, that puts butts in seats, as they say, and, that's going to be a really fun series to watch. So definitely, I've had those marked on my calendar for a long time, because I think it's just going to be, anytime, any rivalry game, always fun to watch. And so, kind of getting back on the topic of just kind of the culture around baseball, but not really. I've been hearing a lot of talk, and especially everyone has. This is back in the majors. It feels like for a couple years now we've been hearing about Oakland possibly moving to Las Vegas, and that got me thinking about if I were to add 2 teams, make it a 32-team league in Major League Baseball, where would I personally add them? And I mean, I feel like the obvious answer for me is I would add a team in Tennessee, just because of kind of the baseball culture that they've built there with, 2 absolutely phenomenal college programs with Tennessee and Vanderbilt right there. I feel like it's a market that's kind of untapped. You could argue that it kind of grazes Reds country a little bit, but I definitely think that would be a very viable place to put a new team. And then the other one would be, I kind of hate to keep it all in the same country, but not country. We're keeping it all in the USA here, but on the same coast. I'd put one in the Carolinas. I'd put one in Raleigh. I kind of wanted to stay away from the obvious answer of putting a team in Vegas, because I feel like if they were to add a team or relocate a team, that's where they would go, because that seems like that's where the NHL went. That's where the NFL went. So that seems like the next logical place that someone would want to go in the league. So that, and that's interesting. You can do a whole show basically talking about Las Vegas and how that's kind of worked out. The Pro Bowl was there this year, and it's interesting though. It's interesting kind of the mass evacuation away from Oakland. That's something I've been interested in, is Golden State kind of moved to San Francisco, and Oakland's they're trying to get a new stadium. People don't know if it's going to happen. They're thinking that they're going to move away, and then you got the Raiders, of course, that moved to Vegas, which I thought it would make more sense to put the Raiders in Los Angeles. I thought there were more Raiders fans in Los Angeles than there were in Las Vegas, but and then of course the Golden Knights, which I feel like that's the team that has kind of the strongest fan base around Vegas, because that's a team that started in Vegas, and that's kind of their own team that they were all able to rally behind, and they're good. That team was phenomenal. You almost want to, if you're a Jackets fan, you get upset that they let William Karlsson go in the expansion draft. But yeah, no, we're about running out of time here for Cats at the Corners. We got 1 week until baseball season, and then another big happy Friday to everyone out there listening. We're not quite there yet to the weekend. Still got a little bit of time left, but it's right here. You made it. Congratulations. Enjoy yourself, and be sure, if you are available, go to the women's lacrosse game at 3 o'clock, Nippert Stadium, and then after that, head on down to Sports Plus, 9 o'clock, puck drop, West Virginia at Cincinnati. It's going to be a great game. Senior weekend, make sure you check them out. Make sure you support our guys that have played for us for so long. We'll be back next Tuesday Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Cats Corners. Show's called Cats at the Corners at Cats Corners. And that's about going to do it for us this week. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you on Tuesday.